In this lesson, we are going to be talking about the different types of friction. So by the end of the lesson, you should be able to explain what friction is. You should be able to identify the 4 different types of friction and describe different ways to reduce friction. So what is friction? Well, friction is the force that opposes the motion between 2 surfaces that are touching. So like your feet in the floor, your book and your desk, your car's tires and the road. All of those different things have a certain type of friction. And when a moving object comes in contact with another object, the friction is the opposing force that slows or stops the moving object. So if your book is sitting on your desk not moving, it has a type of friction that's allowing it to stay there. If you're rolling a ball across the floor and you notice that it's slowing down and eventually comes to a stop, that's because of friction. So what causes friction? Well, without friction, an object would continue to move at a constant speed forever. So if we didn't have friction and you rolled that ball across the floor, the ball would continue to go across the floor at the speed that you pushed it off as forever until you stopped it. And the strength of the friction depends on the type of surface, how hard the 2 surfaces push together. So that ball would roll faster on a hardwood floor than it would on carpet. And a basketball would roll faster than a bowling ball because of their weights. So rough surfaces produce a greater friction than smooth surfaces. Like I said, with the ball and rolling it across hardwood floor and carpet. And even though smooth surfaces feel smooth, they are actually covered with tiny hills and valleys. We can't see them, but they're there, which is what causes the friction on a smooth surface. So in a world without friction, you couldn't write, drive, or fly an airplane. There is a video here, and I'm going to link it in the resource videos for this week. It just explains what would happen if we lived in a world without friction and how things would go about happening, like riding a scooter, standing up a ladder, other things like that. So what are the 4 types of friction? Well, we've got rolling friction, static friction, sliding friction, and fluid friction. All of these are types of friction that you see every day and you don't even know it. So what do all of these pictures have in common? Well, the first picture, this lady is walking her dog with rollerblades. The next picture is a picture of skee ball, a ball rolling down the alley for the skee ball. And the final picture is a picture of a car driving. So all of these have rolling friction in common. So what is rolling friction? Well, rolling friction is the friction that occurs between surfaces in motion in which one of the surfaces is a wheel, a roller, or a ball. So examples are like riding a bike, the tires in the ground, bowling the ball in the lane. And when you're bowling, they try to reduce the amount of friction on the lane with that wax that they put over the alley, which is why they tell you not to walk on it. But it doesn't stop the friction altogether. It just reduces it so that your bowling ball can get all the way down the lane. So what do all these pictures have in common? Well, this teacup is sitting here not moving. Then we have this soccer ball sitting here not moving, and this desk and all the things on the desk sitting there not moving. So they all have the fact that they're not moving in common. Well, that is called static friction. Static friction is the friction that occurs when the surfaces in contact are at rest, so they're not moving. Some examples would be a book resting on your desk, so your textbook sitting there on your desk waiting, or a potted plant sitting on the sidewalk. They aren't moving, that is because there's so much friction between the two objects that it allows it to stay in place. Now, what do all these things have in common? You've got some ladies playing shuffleboard. They're sliding pucks across the board. And you've got some hockey players sliding the hockey puck across the ice. Well, this is sliding friction. So sliding friction is the friction that occurs when solid surfaces slide over one another. So some examples are like writing your pencil and paper, combing your hair, you've got the comb going through your strands of hair. Some other examples could be moving a box in your house if you decide to push it, sliding papers across a desk. There are many examples in the world of sliding friction. What do all of these pictures have in common? So it looks like we've got a person paragliding, I believe that is, an airplane, and then Michael Phelps swimming. All of these things have a fluid in common. Air is considered a fluid, and so is water. So this is fluid friction. Fluid friction is the force that tries to slow objects down when they move through a liquid or a gas. We also call these things drag or air resistance. But in this case, we're going to talk about them as fluid friction. Fluid friction occurs in all gases and liquids, and all gases and liquids are considered fluids. An airplane and a swimmer both have fluid friction. Different types of fluid, but they both have the same friction. So what are some ways to reduce friction? Well, you could either smooth the surface out so that the friction goes way down. You could roll something instead of slide it, or you could add oil or another type of lubricant to allow it to slide easier. So let's do just a little bit of recap for this lesson. Friction is the force that opposes between two objects. There are 4 different types of friction. You have rolling friction, static friction, sliding, and fluid friction. Rolling friction is between a ball or wheels and a surface. Static friction means there's no motion between the objects. Sliding friction means the surfaces are sliding past each other. And fluid friction means an object going through air or water. And some ways to reduce friction would be adding a lubricant, having a smooth surface, or even changing the type of friction. So instead of having sliding friction, do rolling friction. So this ends the lesson for today. If you have any questions, write them down in your weekly journal. Otherwise, if you think they're pretty important, send me an email or a text message and I can help you out. Otherwise, have a great day.